welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor. And today I want to talk about spending time alone. So, what do you do when you're alone? What's the importance of spending time alone? How do you transition from time that you thought you were going to be with people, with loved ones, to spending time alone because plans change? And finally, how does being alone change a little bit when we're in recovery, or does it? Whether that recovery is from alcoholism or stroke. So I think everybody on the planet can relate to this thing about being alone. So first of all, I want to address this first question. What do you do when you're alone? So for many of us, for me, it has changed quite a bit over my lifetime. I am 49 now. I will be 50 in a couple months. And so I know firsthand that being alone can be very boring. And that is where my mind space was my whole life. Until I got sober, really. And it wasn't immediate when I got sober. It took me some time practicing the program. But some of us feel restless or even anxious without the company of other people. But alone time can be incredibly valuable if we approach it with the right mindset. Sometimes it's expected alone time, and sometimes it's unexpected. And I want to talk a little bit about how to approach it when it's not expected as well, because sometimes that can be a little more viewed as boring or negative, or, just feeling like I wish my plans didn't change and stuff like that. So I want to talk about that. So instead of viewing alone time as a period of isolation, we can see it as an opportunity for self-reflection. And for me, when I got sober, alone time was really when the rubber hit the road in early sobriety. Time after time, alone time was a spiritual checkpoint for me. I had to think about, am I committed to my sobriety? I mean, that was the first question when I was alone. Like, am I committed to my program when nobody is watching? What are my choices? Even if I'm not picking up a drink, are my choices the next right thing when nobody's watching? So when I'm alone, I try to engage in activities today that nurture my mind and my spirit. And that might sound like a bunch of fluff, but it's not. I'm being completely honest with you that this is the way I approach alone time. I have had to make a conscious decision that this is the way that I'm going to spend time with myself. And it has truly shifted things for me, my enjoyment of life. I try to do things when I'm alone that celebrate being alive and being given this second chance in sobriety. And now that I'm dealing with stroke recovery, I even more, I'm celebrating this third chance post stroke. So this could be, celebrating being alive can look like whatever you enjoy, whatever it is that brings you joy, being with yourself. So this could be anything from listening to a book, baking, cooking, make participating in a hobby. So today, my husband and I, for the holiday, got to cook a big Memorial Day feast for ourselves. We had we're vegan, right? So we had some corn on the cob. I made a lovely salad, if I don't say so myself, with a nice cashew dressing. It was really, really good. And we had some Beyond Burger backyard grill burgers, which are our favorite. They taste like freaking real burgers and we put like lettuce and tomato and onions and cheese. We found a vegan cheese by Kraft that is just like cheese. I mean, especially if you melt it, just like real cheese. And what else did we have in there was something, oh, tater tots. We had tater tots. So this is something that I was looking forward to. And as soon as I got up, I was listening to my AA meeting and I started making my salad and really looking forward to it. And before we did that, before we actually got to eat, he got the opportunity to go shopping with his mom to pick up a brand new refrigerator for her. So this offered me an opportunity to spend some time alone. So for a hot second, right when he left to go to his mom's house, I thought of all the people out there in the world that were heading to their Memorial Day picnics and getting together with large groups and parties. Memorial Day was a big day when my kids were growing up in the neighborhood that we lived in Charlestown. We went to a huge neighborhood party with my daughter's friends' parents through this big party. Her dad was in a band, so there was a band there, and there was just endless alcohol and food. I personally would bring my box of wine, and I think I was the only one drinking out of that box, but I put a big dent in it by the end of the night. And I just absolutely loved this party every year. It was something to look forward to. It was one of those days that everything felt perfect. Um, the weather was always nice. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I was probably drunk by the time it started raining. If it started raining, I don't know. But it was so nice outside. They had this big backyard and the kids were running around and laughing. And I just brought my chair and my husband would come. At that time, we were boyfriend, girlfriend, and we would just drink and watch the music. And it was just so fun. We had so much fun frolicking. And of course, I got to drink from sunup to beyond sundown, which towards the end of my drinking, I did that every day anyway. It didn't have to be a holiday. But on this holiday, on Memorial Day, it meant that everybody else was doing it too. And they probably weren't, but that's what I was seeing. It gave me permission to just be like thinking I'm like everybody else. Everybody else is drinking like this today. Um, anyway, so fast forward to today, I'm in my kitchen, and as soon as I felt this tinge of jealousy that others still get to drink that way, and sadness that those days are gone for me, and I tried in my mind, my mental unwellness, right? It will do this to me. It will say, those days are gone for you, and your kids are all grown up, and you don't live in that neighborhood anymore, and you don't have those friends anymore. Like the idea of being able to drink like that is where the thought starts. And then I start telling myself, I start creating this narrative about why things are so terrible right now, like why I should be jealous of other people. But this is what I did. So I thought of this. I thought, why do I want to be right where I am? That's all I thought. And just like that, the negative feelings disintegrated. Now, this all happened in an instant, like for real. I said that that thought came to my head for a hot second. That was how fast it was. Even though it's taken me a few minutes to explain to you what happened within me, this really only lasted 5 seconds. It was that fast. Um, I I thought, why do I want to be right where I am? And there were so many reasons why I wanted to be right where I am that it was so easy for all of that to just disappear for me. And I carried on with my day and did exactly what I listed earlier. I celebrated being alive by listening to a good book. I'm listening to, I think it's called The Gift of Being, or The Benefits of Being a Wallflower, or The Gift of Being a Wallflower. I can't remember, sorry, what the book is called. It's really good. And I listened for like 3 hours of it today. I've got 2 more hours left and I'm excited to see how it ends. So I listened to that book, and while I listened to the book, I baked, because you guys know that I never sit still. So I baked I used my sourdough discard, who I lovingly called Ricardo Discardo, and I made a rustic, um, I don't know, rustic sourdough loaf, I think it's called. So I made two of those. They're kind of like French bread. And I cooked my salad. Well, I cut everything up and made my amazing dressing. And then I also worked on one of my creative expressions, which I finished today. And I got to share it with the friend that I made it for. If you remember, I made curtains, or I didn't make the curtains. I hemmed the curtains for my friend, and then I had some leftover material. So I cut up the material into 1 inch strips and I braided them into like a big gigantic long braid, and then I sewed them into a basket. So I will post it on my website. It's adorable. So I was so excited to show it to her that I texted her a picture. I'm like, look what I did. And yes, I sent it to my family and I'm like, look what I can do. Look what I can do. And my mom actually responded, and said she almost cried when she saw it. And that was just so absolutely meaningful to me, you know? These activities that I did, if I think about it, if I back up and think, for a hot second, I was thinking about all, that drinking stuff and how not present I was in that time that I was going to the party. And yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it was fun. I loved doing that, but things are different now. And I have to say that the joy that I experienced today was unparalleled to the times when I was going to the party and stuff. It's different. It's very different, and I'm more present, and the happiness and the joy is feels more permanent. It feels more, it's absolutely mentally and emotionally better for me. But all of this today provided a sense of calmness, and it allowed me to feel good about myself on a deeper level. So alone time is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to recharge, reflect, and realign your commitment to your own joy and doing the work to surface it. And I reached out to um, these folks and shared what I did. And I've got such great, happy responses that it was just even more touching to me. And I got all of that reward because I celebrated being alone. You know, by celebrating my life, being alive and being alone, I positively affected other people. And, and I think we often forget the value of solitude. I spend a lot of time alone now, and it's difficult in recovery. Some of you may be able to relate in stroke recovery. Sometimes it's difficult when you have all of this time alone to make the best of all of it. You know, anything that we do over and over again starts to lose its value. You know, it appears to be a little less exciting the more that we do it. I talk a lot about community and fellowship, then I talk about alone time. Um, Alone time is essential for us for self-discovery and our mental well-being. And it allows us to process thoughts and emotions without the influence of others. Maybe I get so much alone time in recovery because I need it. I need that much time to process all of my crazies, right? All of my crazy thoughts and emotions and the stuff that's going on, the stuff um, that I think of that is the process of me accepting what's been going on in my life and the disability that I have. This self-awareness is so important in my recovery because it helps me to understand what things I actually enjoy. I've only discovered that through being forced to be alone. And I also have uncovered like what I need. I understand a little more what I need, what my triggers are. I was able to see today that as soon as my husband walked out the door and I was alone on a holiday, it triggered me immediately. It triggered me and it triggered my head to go to the place that I used to be where I used to drink as much as possible. I was completely not present in life, and I didn't have a care in the world. But as I was able to practice my program, because it's habit now to shift my mindset immediately when I feel something negative, it's like, nope, I'm not going to let you do that. And then I can recognize my progress and identify areas that need attention. So spending time alone teaches us to be comfortable with ourselves. I used to be so freaking bored when I was growing up, when I was alone. I remember telling my mom, I've told you guys this before. I remember telling her, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored. That must have been so aggravating. I had no idea what to do with myself. And my kids don't seem to be the same as me. And I don't know if it's because they have phones now or what it is, but my kids seem to thrive alone. My son, more so, I think he is especially just so, this is what I see. so creative, so pensive, and so comfortable in his own skin, comfortable being alone. And I see it in my daughter as well. You know, actually, my daughter texted us tonight, Bailey, and she said that she took some time and went for a mile walk, and then she ran 3 miles, and then she stopped by, I don't know, a river, I think, some water. She says she stopped, she took her shoes off and put her feet in the water and just sat there and enjoyed being alone, right? That's so funny because I didn't even think about that, put two and two together, that that was my topic today. And that is what she sent me. So that's that only in sobriety. I'm telling you, it only happens in sobriety. So this kind of time is important, whether you're in recovery or not, because it builds this inner strength that we need to navigate challenges. And in recovery, navigating setbacks. And I continue to have setbacks. I mean, I feel good again. So that means it's time for a setback soon. You know, I shouldn't have that mindset, but I do feel pretty good right now. And that's exciting for me because I think last couple weeks, it took me much longer to build back up from my setback. So knowing when you're alone time is a healthy choice rather than isolation is also important to recognize. Are you alone because you need to recharge, or are you alone because you want to emotionally drain yourself in seclusion because you're in pain? You know what I mean? So, next up, what happens when plans change and we find ourselves alone unexpectedly? I feel like this is like different for me. So I don't know if it's the same with you, but transitioning from time that we thought we were going to be with others to time alone can be challenging. It's natural, I think, when you're expecting to be with people and then you find out, nope, everything's changed. My whole day is not going to be what I thought it was going to be. I'm going to be alone. Initially gives me a feeling of great disappointment, right? To say the least. Even abandonment, which you know, that's a strong word to use, but that is sometimes how painful it feels when plans fall through, you know? And I don't know that we acknowledge that when plans, we kind of like, you know, I know that feeling. It's almost like you're unsettled and you don't want to let that disappointment fall too deep in your gut because it feels childish to be so disappointed in something. But that's the honest truth. It feels almost like you've been abandoned, yeah, you know, for the day. But this transition from thinking we're going to be with somebody and then being forced to be alone can be an opportunity, right? It can be an opportunity to learn how to be flexible and learn how to adapt. I know you're probably pissed that I'm always like, it's an opportunity. You can learn how to do this now, but it's true. The more that we're able to be really aware of things that happen to us and have it be like something kicks in. This happened to me. Okay, now I'm going to practice flexibility. I know exactly what to do. Or I'm going to practice adaptability. I know exactly what to do. We have to practice it. We have to name it and practice it. That way, the next time it happens, we can go, okay, I'm going to pull that out of my toolbox. And that's what I have to do now. And the more that I can look at my toolbox and see that I know how to deal with that situation and it's natural, the further I am from a drink personally, but from mental unwellness too. So when plans change, I try to view it as a gift of unexpected free time. So this is similar to, if you remember me telling you that my grandmother, said that when she couldn't sleep, which happens, I don't know, she seems like it happened a lot for her. When she couldn't sleep, she told herself that it was an unexpected gift of more time to enjoy her life, more awake time, that it was God's gift to her, an unexpected gift of more awake time. So instead of getting all anxious and uptight and dwelling on what you think should be happening right now, but it's not, focus on how can I make the most of the time that I have now, right? And it seems very similar to what my grandmother used to say. This might mean indulging in a hobby or starting a new project or simply relaxing, taking a nap, enjoying some peace and quiet. The key is to shift the perspective from one of loss to one of opportunity. And I'll tell you, one of my favorite things to do when I am unexpectedly alone and I don't feel like having peace and quiet, I don't feel like napping, I wanted to be with somebody because I spend so much time alone. This is what I do. I sit and I think about what my next craft can be. That's what I do. And before long, so I take these curtains, for example, the curtains that I hemmed and I had this leftover material. I think about something that I have that I want to repurpose, and then I just kind of look around the house and think about, I could make that. I could make that. I don't know how to make that. That would be stupid. That wouldn't work. That's what I do. I spend time thinking about something, a creative expression, and it actually starts making me get excited. And before long, I end up in this room, which is, I don't even know what to call this room now. It used to be my office. It, I don't want to call it my craft room. That sounds like I'm 80. So I was thinking of calling it my studio because I use it for my podcast, but I also use it for sewing and painting and doing crafts. Studio sounds way younger and more hip. So anyway, we might go with studio. So anyway, this is what I do when I'm unexpectedly alone. Being alone takes on an entirely different dimension when we're in recovery, in my opinion. And whether that's from alcoholism or stroke, they're a bit different because, as I said, alone time when I was in early sobriety was a spiritual checkpoint. But honestly, alone time in the beginning of my stroke recovery was also quite challenging on a spiritual level. I had to continue to self-reflect and make sure that my my mindset, my mind was in the right place. When folks are recovering from alcoholism, alone time can be a blessing and a curse. And on one hand, it provides a space for self-reflection and practice. On the other hand, it can be very risky and can trigger cravings and negative thoughts if not managed properly. So, my suggestion is to practice being alone in early sobriety in a controlled way. For me, I had a plan for alone time. I had a list of activities that I was going to do. I think in early sobriety, I would have one actual hobby, and it was usually flea market flipping. I would work on some piece of furniture. And I would do something that was really monotonous, but used my hands. And one of my favorite things to do was sanding. So sanding down a piece of furniture, because it took a long time and it got some energy out of me, meaning it was a little bit of exercise, to sand. And then when I got kind of tired of that, I would do a lot of cleaning. So have a plan, have a list of activities that support your sobriety. It can be hobbies, it can be these days, it can be attending virtual meetings, which is a huge help, I think. Reading recovery literature. I made sure every day in early sobriety, I spent at least 20 minutes. It was just a random number that I picked, 20 minutes reading some piece of recovery literature. It was usually the big book or the 12 and 12. And then also exercise. I did a lot of running, a lot of running. So I spent a lot of time alone running, and that helped me that was meditative for me, for sure. It's also helpful if you're going to spend some controlled alone time. It's helpful to stay connected with your support network. So even when you're physically alone, make a quick phone call or text a sponsor or a friend. Let somebody know that you're alone. And that can also provide that connection. You're still tied to somebody, so that you have an open door for the support that you need. Also practice picking up the phone when you're alone, so that every time that you're alone, so that if you ever find yourself in an unhealthy mental space, picking up the phone is a habit. And the phone isn't quite as heavy because you've been practicing picking it up. For those recovering from a stroke, I think alone time can be equally complex. It can be a time for physical and cognitive rehabilitation exercises. I don't sit down and have one time during the day that I do my rehabilitation exercises. Mine I do throughout the day, and it's whenever I am alone. It's usually between activities. I'll sit down because I have to sit down and rest my head anyway. So, which is kind of, I guess, counterintuitive, because I'll sit down and then I'll do some exercises. So that's probably not what I should be doing, but that's what I do. So I'll do an activity and then I'll sit down and kind of stare for a little bit. There are times that I'll sit down and stare for a while. Staring helps me, helps my brain rest. But so I'll stare for a little bit, and then I'll try to do some activities, and sometimes it doesn't work. Like my head starts hurting or feeling dizzy, and I realize, well, I can't really do this right now, and I just continue to stare. So alone time, though, in stroke recovery can also feel quite isolating. So I think finding a balance between resting and staying active is difficult. For me, it is difficult. It's still difficult. So this was by suggestion by my husband, and then later by all of my doctors and my vestibular therapist. So as you know, my husband really should be all of my doctors rolled into one person. But setting small achievable goals in my alone time, because I'll just get out of hand, which I think is what I did today when he left to go pick out the refrigerator. Um I made those 2 loaves of Ricardo Discardo bread. I'm making brioche, which I got that it takes like 2 days to make brioche. So I spent part of the day doing some of the preparations for that. I made the salad. I listened to my book. Like things get out of hand for me. So it's important that I do small achievable goals and then sit down and rest. I did not rest this morning. So when he got back, I was either going to eat and take a nap, or take a nap and then eat. So we ended up making all of our food, and then we both took a nap. So, and I very much needed that. Okay, back on topic, Rachel. So ultimately, I use my alone time in recovery to find balance, to find purpose, um, to surface that joy, find a way that I can feel accomplished. And I can find that in so many things, from cleaning to finishing a script for my next podcast episode, making a basket. Like, I mean, the list is endless these days. And I use this time to nurture myself, to celebrate all the things that my mind and my body can still do. And that is something that started when I got sober. And those of you who are in sobriety, see if you can connect with this. So one of the reasons why I started running was because my body, when I got sober, it took some time. But when I got sober, I started eating right. I started drinking water. My body started to be able to, it was healing. I got color back in my face. I put some weight on, which I needed. I personally needed weight to be put on. And my body started to function the way that it was supposed to function. Like my digestive system started to function appropriately. I started to sweat, which I know that's weird, but I never used to sweat. And when I got sober, sweating was like, it was a miracle to me. It was beautiful. I loved it. And still to this day, when I sweat, like it feels so good to me because I spent so long dehydrated and not sweating. But I was able to start doing things that when I was drinking, I either couldn't do because my body couldn't withstand that, or I didn't feel like doing it because I was so freaking lazy. Um, so celebrating the things that my body could do when I got sober. Well, now that I've had my stroke, um, I feel even more like celebrating what my mind and my body can do because I see, I have felt, and I still feel on bad days how easily my mind can stop working, how my cognitive abilities are not always at the ready for me. They're not always accessible if I'm not doing well. And my body is also not fully accessible on a bad day because I just can't find words. I can't complete my thoughts and my sentences well, and my head starts hurting. My eyes, I can't, so much I can't do. So being alone on a good day, it's such a good time to celebrate this body and mind and what I've been given. It's a gift. And I'm so grateful that that I've been given the opportunity to be aware of that. And I only could have been given that if because I had a stroke and I'm a recovering alcoholic. I mean, that sounds terrible that I had to go through that to be so appreciative of these simple things that I was given, but that's me. I mean, I learn everything the hard way. But I also find alone time to be a a time to connect with my best friend, and that has to be me, and connect with my higher power because alone time is not something to fear or avoid. It's a valuable part of my recovery journey. And I would, I cannot round out this episode if I did not say that I don't ever feel truly alone anymore. I haven't since I was in San Francisco 8 years ago on that business trip that I told you guys about. So when I'm talking about being alone, um, there is that caveat. I really don't feel that I'm truly alone anymore. And I feel really fortunate to have that in my pocket. That's just what I've got. And it's something that I gained through sobriety. So squeeze your alone time for all it's worth with positivity and an open mindset. Use it as an opportunity for self-care. Use it as an opportunity for reflection, and most of all, use your alone time to celebrate yourself. Being alone is not the same as being lonely. Make the best of that time when nobody is watching, because that's when you get to learn how to be your own best friend and how to love yourself. And I think that's what my mom wanted me to learn how to do, and I didn't know how to do it. And now I do. And it took me a lot of time, but I figured it out. So I'm happy that I'm here now, in this mindset. I also had a listener tell me today, I like who I'm becoming. And that just filled me. It brings a lump to my throat, actually, because that, my friend, is a gift of sobriety. And it is, again, it's unparalleled to be able to recognize to recognize that you like who you are becoming. It's beautiful. It's self-love. That's what self-love is. So thank you so much for listening today to the Recovery Daily podcast. And please share this episode with a friend that you think might benefit. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And I will talk to you tomorrow.